live?
Yep.
Did you send a link to Scott?
I already did. He's telling you to retweet it.
Nope. See his message. Wait, he tweeted it, you said?
No, he slacked it. Sorry.
I don't see it. The last message I have in the Scott and you and me is that G account your action account or personal?
Can you send he just tagged you in a thread with, like, we're live right now, but he just tagged you in a thread with Mears. Okay, there it is. Are you ready?
Yeah, give people like 20 more seconds. Get your get as many people in here for your reaction to Utah.
I don't know if you want to talk about that or the fact that we're going to hire an interim coach after the Razorback Foundation flew the plane from coast to coast, back and forth again. We're the ones without a coach.
You putting your application in?
Why not? Why not?
I'll be your fourth down coordinator. I'm just gonna text Nick the fucking ball.
Literally, the foundation plane flew from Spokane to Boca Raton the other day. How much jet fuel? How much money is that?
Are you becoming an aviation expert?
Listen, I just know where I need to go to see where the plane is flying. That's all. You don't understand, like Houston Nutt. We pulled a Freedom of Information Act on Houston Nutt's phone. I mean, we had Bobby Petrino exposed before that knee hit the asphalt when he came off the bike.
By the way, Florida State hired Norvell. Is that done?
Yeah, it looks like it's done.
Picture of him at Central Arkansas. He looks like Riff Raff. Did you see this? Yeah. He has, I'll retweet it right now. He literally looks exactly like Riff Raff. But how about Central Arkansas? They got Florida State coach.
South Alabama.
Well, no, he played at Central Arkansas.
Right.
And the South Florida coach, Charlie Strong, is from Conway. Did you know that?
I knew he was from down somewhere. But yeah, Conway, sure. No, but
I got to find this picture.
Central Arkansas, the old head coach was the guy that's now at South Alabama, Steve Campbell. So
no one cares.
Yeah.
All right. Purple Bears. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Action Network College Football Championship Saturday betting preview live show. I'm stuck in. With me, as always, is Colin Wilson. Not as happy as he could have been this morning, although I don't know if he would have showed up had Utah won. Look, I know people are always – I got to give credit to Oregon, and I don't know how the first half under hit. Oh, here we go. I'm just retweeted it. The picture of him. Like, he's got dreads. It looks exactly like Riff Raff. But look, I got to give credit for Oregon to coming out. Their defense was flying around. Thibodeau was amazing. The Utah defense was lost. Their offensive line was lost. Their defense was lost. Obviously, losing Blackman hurt, but they couldn't stop the run. But I think what the game came down to is it was your classic Mario Cristobal melt in progress. And by the way, Oregon, I mean, Utah 4th and 1 4 times, and they couldn't get 3 of them, and then they got a false start in the other one. Didn't sneak the ball 1 time. But now they're at 4th and 5, down by 1 possession, down by 8. And 4th and 4 at like the 38, and they punt.
Yeah.
And I know like a lot of people like to play Monday morning quarterback, but I said right away, punting? What? I actually walked away, and I had to put my dog out, and I was scrambling around, and I didn't have any money at this point, and I came back to see, and I missed the play, and I looked at the action app, and it said first down Oregon. I didn't even realize where they were, so I assumed they got another stop, but no, they punted, and that's when I was like, what? They punted? So, I mean, I think that he let emotion take over from all the previous stops, but then they break a 70-yard run and the game is over. But what makes that punt even more egregious is you're down. You have to assume you're down 2 possessions because you are down 1 possession technically. But if you don't get the 2-point conversion, which isn't a gimme, you have to score again. So punting there just did I didn't get it. But credit to Oregon and Utah. Good night. And I'm looking forward to fading you in whatever bowl you end up in. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we're going for 4th and 1 from the very first drive. Failed. Again, failed. Listen, Shooter's got to shoot.
Had a punt blocked.
Had a punt block. Shooter's got to shoot. I don't know why you're pulling up and doing a punt in a 1-possession game in the 4th quarter. Sounds like something Billy Napier did earlier this year. So, hey, listen. Made the call. I had it focused and centered in the spring, made the call in May, and to take that future all the way to December and be able to get into a position to wash my hands and get points on the other side. I mean, that's just, it wasn't, I still made, more than twice my investment on Utah, but it wasn't the most optimal financial ending, but that's all right. That's why we do this from the beginning, because it's put ourselves in a position to at least, double the initial investment. But I mean, I got stuffed every single time, I'm not surprised. I didn't think Oregon was a bad team. Neither of us did. And we knew that the number was inflated. So it happens.
Yeah. The other thing that I'll say is I actually didn't have a Utah to win the Pac-12 future. I checked. I had Utah to win their division, but I had Utah to make the playoff. I actually got them at 12-1. So light that up in flames. So with Utah done, what that opens the door for is, I guess, Wisconsin is technically alive. If they blow out Ohio State, LSU beats Georgia, and like Baylor barely beats Oklahoma in like a fluky game, maybe Wisconsin gets in. But really what it comes down to is it's going to come down to the 4:00 game, because Georgia win and they're in. And I'm letting my SEC ride. I'm letting my national championship futures ride. I'm letting everything ride today. I'm letting ULL 13-1 to win the division. To win the Sun Belt ride. But if the winner of Oklahoma or Baylor is in, if LSU wins at 3:30, probably about a 98, 99% probability, I would assume. Now, so that's what it comes down to. Oklahoma and Baylor can help themselves by making it look convincing, obviously. Then it's just no doubt. Then it's just, okay, Georgia winning in. If not, it's the winner of the Big 12 championship. So that's where we stand from a playoff perspective. I also assume where it could get the craziest is if Clemson loses to Virginia, because I think Ohio State and LSU are in regardless, right? Do you agree?
Yeah.
So, but Clemson doesn't have a resume. Well, you agree that they're one of the best teams in the country. So a loss as a 28-point favorite with, you were favored by 24 every game of the year, you could put Clemson in jeopardy. And then it gets really interesting, because say you get Clemson out of there, I don't even know who the 4th team would be if LSU beats Georgia. Well, if you had the Big 12 winner, and then who? Alabama going to get in? So
from 12 to 4 in the last week.
So there could be some teams that appear dead, but could root for the chaos to continue at night with a Virginia win, which we don't think is really feasible. We'll get to that game, but let's want to pull up the board?
Sure.
I'm looking here now for, let's see what's on the move. It's amazing that almost every over today is getting hit. Have you seen that?
It happened during the middle of the week too.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, because we'll get to the side later, but Virginia Clemson, I played that under. That thing got up to 56.5. So obviously 55 is a key number in college football. And I think 56 is an important number too, but I think it's even more important tonight because I don't think Virginia is going to be settling for field goals, especially if they're down big. So like a 49-7, a 42-14 gets you there. So once this crossed the 55, it became intriguing to me because I just don't see how Virginia scores. Look, you look back at what Clemson has done against mobile quarterbacks, which is basically what Virginia's offense is. They're not an efficient passing attack. They're not an efficient rushing attack. But this Clemson defense, Reynolds for Charlotte, Mond for Texas A&M, Newman for Wake Forest, none of them ran for anything. So I think Venables can have this schemed up. It's tough to, break loose against that 3-3-5. It's a really fast defense. So I just don't know how Virginia moves the ball. Virginia's a snail. They're one of the slowest teams in the country. They were last year. They were this year. Now, they might have to speed it up if they get behind, but I still can't see them scoring. Now, Clemson might be able to just hit a number of big plays down the field against this Virginia secondary, which is very vulnerable without Bryce Hall. But eventually, once they build a big enough lead, they're going to chill. I'm talking up 40 if it's, 42-0 in the fourth quarter. So I can't play Virginia on principle of the number, but, because technically I see value in Virginia, a little value in Virginia, but unless it gets to 31, I can't play them because I just don't see how they score, and I don't see how their secondary slows down Clemson. I just don't see it, but I do like the under. You want to cross off this game on what you say?
Yeah, I mean, I could see the case for the under, but I think it's really a matter of if you think Bryce Perkins can be limited by the front seven of the Clemson defense, and I would argue that the answer is yes. I don't think it's a flat spot or anything. I mean, I don't think you have a flat spot coming into a championship game. But
yeah, I agree.
The entire offense is based around Bryce Perkins. The design runs, the short passing, everything goes through Bryce Perkins. So it's really like the Clemson front seven is going to line up and just play. All of them are going to be a spy on Bryce Perkins. That's really all it is. So the offense is simplistic enough to where the athleticism of Clemson's defense is going to be able to dominate on that side of the ball. So really, if you're worried about an over-under, then you're really handicapping when is Dabo going to stop scoring and can Bryce Perkins put up more than 10 points? I don't think they can. I don't think Virginia can put up more than 10 points. So I think the under is just as good as the Clemson number, although we see, Clemson's 28.5. So those 28s are long gone.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Clemson's in with a win. So I know people want to say that they're going to keep their foot on the gas, and they may for a while. But at the end of the day, they have bigger fish to fry, right? Mm-hmm. I get maybe if they think that if they can win by 60, they can improve their seed. But I don't think that they're getting the one. I mean, I guess it can depend on what happens early in the day and with Ohio State. But like if Ohio State loses and LSU lose, Clemson's the 1 seed. Right. But if they both win, I don't see anything that Clemson can do to pass both to get to the 1. Right. Do you agree?
No, I agree.
Yeah. So I think eventually Clemson says, OK, we have bigger fish to fry. And they're going to, they're going to worry about health. And I know the playoff is a long way away, but someone gets injured and all of a sudden, Trevor Lawrence gets injured and your college football repeat dreams are down the drain. I'll be on the under there.
Everybody better get your OU bets in because it looks like the market's going to take it to 10. So that thing was just kind of bouncing around dead number all week, but it looks like it's finally getting good 10. But to wrap up on Virginia Clemson, you're right, like the under.
For me, there, I made Oklahoma a little over 10, and this was in the dead range. I mean, it's interesting that Oklahoma was a closed 10 without CeeDee Lamb in Waco. Right. And I ended up playing Baylor small once I heard Lamb was out at 10 or 10.5. But so I saw a little value in Oklahoma, but I'm taking a little risk here. I'm going to wait to see. I mean, there will be points in this game. Baylor should hit some explosive plays, so I'm going to wait to see if I can get Oklahoma live. If not, this will be a pass for me. You're on Oklahoma, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm on Oklahoma. I had Oklahoma -8, and I've got a pretty sizable investment on OU to make the playoffs. So I do have a incentive here for OU to run it up. But I think what's important here is what I'm highlighting in the recent box scores about Oklahoma's previous games, not including Oklahoma State. You can see the turnover discrepancy here on the far right. And that's just like, I mean, you can see how they're beating people in total yards, no issues. Holding TCU to 204 yards, but that game being as close as it is. I think there's a severe discount in the market because of if you look inside the box scores, they're blowing people out. I mean, if you had no clue if these turnovers didn't happen, and if they didn't happen at the field position that they did, OU would have just, cruised through this last month. But, they made life tough on themselves by all these turnovers. So, but you can see from the total yardage.
TCU game, I mean, we said this, the Iowa State game, they're up 21 a bunch. The TCU game, I had Oklahoma. First half of game, they covered the first half, and then they're up 11 about the score, and the receiver falls down. There's a 100-yard pick six. I better not have a 100-yard pick six this weekend against me. Although I did get one with Auburn, so I think we're 3-1, 3 on the bad, 1 for the good. But yeah, I mean, I just don't know what Baylor can do defensively to stop the efficient Oklahoma, which is now like a run-heavy attack, because if you do make it, the Baylor defense is excellent at not giving up explosive plays, and you can move the ball on them efficiently. You can move the ball on them on the ground if you have an efficient ground attack, especially since they lost Johnson, their star linebacker. So if Matt Rhule wants to come out here and Snow wants to come out here and go with a more aggressive defensive attack to try and, put more guys in the box, to try and take away the short passes, to try and take away Hurts's running ability. Well, now Lamb is in the game, and that's where Lamb could be a huge factor. It's a double-edged sword. What do? You just play how you've been playing and take away the big play and make sure Lamb isn't a factor? But then I don't see how Oklahoma doesn't just move the ball efficiently up and down the field. Or do you try and play more aggressively and hope that, Hurts doesn't hurt you too much with Lamb deep? But the addition of Lamb here, I think, makes it tougher for Baylor to adjust their defense. On the other side of the ball, the Oklahoma defense is the complete opposite. They're very aggressive. They will give up big plays, which Baylor should hit some of. But they create a lot of havoc. They can, get to the quarterback on third down situations. Baylor's offensive line is a weak point. So, once they get in third downs, I think that Oklahoma's going to be able to create some havoc, create some sacks, get them behind the sticks, and a couple stops here or there. That should be the difference.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the more predictive half out of the first game between the Baylor first half and the Oklahoma second half is definitely the Oklahoma second half. The starting field position of Baylor was their own 46, the Oklahoma 27, and the Oklahoma 9-yard line in the first half of the first game, giving them all those points, which happened extremely fast. So that 28-3 was, it was kind of similar to the Alabama-Oklahoma playoff game last year. You knew it was kind of a fluke about how a team got up, and Oklahoma has, the most successful and one of the most explosive offenses to get back into a game like that. So it was easy to live bet, and it was kind of easy to take a position here and take Oklahoma, who had a 71% success rate in the third quarter compared to Baylor's 25% success rate. You mentioned havoc. This is the biggest gap in havoc this weekend. Oklahoma's defense is top 20 in havoc now, and Baylor's offense, they're 90th in havoc allowed. So it's really interesting that the tables were turned in the first matchup, where Oklahoma was the one having the problem holding onto the ball, although Charlie Brewer had interception there at the end. And that was more predictive according to the numbers.
Yeah, same with sack rate. I mean, I think Baylor's outside the top 100 in sack rate, and Oklahoma's top 20, top 25.
Right.
So same deal there. So what I'll be rooting for there is a Baylor get the ball first, go down the field, go up 7-0, and then I'll get in on Oklahoma. All right. we got to talk the MAC real quick. Unfortunately, but this is the last MAC matchup. I'm sure we're gonna be fading the MAC a lot in bowls as always, but the MAC on MAC crime, which is what it's been this year. If you watch these games, it's been unpredictable, and this championship matchup is as unpredictable as I can remember, with two teams that I don't think anyone thought either one of them would be here, and both are here. This line is at 7. It's come down to 6.5. The over/under is actually taken some money here. I think the over is up to 56. And that's important. Not every move is worth the same. If you see an over, sometimes it could just be public money, sometimes it could be a setup. But if you're crossing the 55, and I think this over under was a 54. That's 55 is a key number in college football. Yeah. It's an important move. Look, I mean, what this comes down to me is I just make this line around 4, so I played a little Miami of Ohio +7. So Central Michigan won by 50 based on my MAC bets this year. But Central Michigan clearly has the better offense. They have similar defenses. Miami of Ohio is a much better special teams unit. That's how they've won games in the MAC this year, which I think could be a huge factor. Their field goal kicker has been huge, but just all around their special teams have been good. They had a couple punt blocks last weekend. And if you look at it, I think you're getting you got a little bit of that, especially when it was at 7 with Miami of Ohio, because they were locked into this game for the last few weeks of the season, and Central Michigan had a win.
Right.
Even Miami of Ohio against Ball State, they just pulled a bunch of their starters at the end of the game, and then Ball State came all the way back. So they didn't care the last couple of weeks. So I don't really put much merit into those results. The MAC's been unpredictable all year. So I'm rolling with a dog here, but just on line value, some special teams advantages. The Central Michigan offense is a lot better. The Miami Ohio offense is awful, but I don't have much more to say on this game. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, our projection over at Action Network was 3.5 on this game. So you can see that you're going to pay a steep tax on Central Michigan in this game. And that's all public perception based upon how Central Michigan has looked the last month, how they slipped into the championship game, and how Miami has not looked over the last month. And you can tell by their box scores over here. But I think we point out in some written content today about how Miami was, beaten in the box score by plenty of teams. You can see here that Ohio had more total yards, Miami looked very poor in a non-cover and some of these games. So, we haven't seen exactly what they're capable of. The problem is when I look at all of their advanced stats on offense, they're all outside the top 100, and most advanced stats for them are outside the top 120. I mean, we're talking bottom 10 in rushing success rate, bottom 10 in line yards, bottom 10 in stuff rate, but 112th in offensive finishing drives. So it's not like you can depend on these guys to get any points once they get past the 40-yard line. So, and Central Michigan is actually in the top 25 in defensive havoc. So that's not good going up against Miami's offense. So I have a hard time backing Miami in this spot. The number is inflated. You should just blindly play it based upon resume. We'll see. I mean, I've got it on 3. So I'm not sure if I'll come back and play some Miami of Ohio live in game. Got to see how good Gabbert looks. He got hurt last week in their last game against Ball State. That's the quarterback for them, Brett Gabbert. So we'll see how he looks in the first series, and maybe I'll come back and try to get some Miami of Ohio live. But I'm comfortable sitting with the Central Michigan number that I got so low as it was.
All right, let's move on to the game that I will be. This is what my day is all about. This and then Georgia, but this more importantly.
There's your 5.5.
I think Laffy can win this game. I have some money line. I have some +7. I have some +6.5. I have 13-1 to win the Sun Belt. I wish I had some Raging Cajuns gear to wear. So, I guess I have a Gator sweatshirt on. You can get some good fried Gator down there. But what this game comes down to me is I think these two teams are about even. I've App State rated a little better. And this is in Boone. By the way, true road underdogs in conference championship games have crushed it against the spread the last 15 years, which this is. And Lafayette covered in this game last year. They were catching like 17.5 though and lost. App State has owned this series. They beat them earlier this year. They've won 7 straight overall since 2014 against the Raging Cajuns. But if you look back at that first matchup, game could have went either way. I mean, everything possible for Louisiana that could have went wrong. I mean, you're talking about goal line stop, 0 for 2 on 4th downs, some bad decisions by Napier, their coach, Billy Napier, who's been unbelievable against the spread. This team's just a covering machine. They made a bad punting decision. There were some questionable penalties that went against them. So, and look, App State did do a great job against their rushing attack. And Lafayette has one of the best. Louisiana's, I never know what to call them anymore. ULL, La Laffy, Louisiana. They have one of the best rushing attacks. Yeah, what were you going to say?
We have to check that email that we got about how to correctly, for people that don't know, we got an email from the University of Louisiana Lafayette to tell us exactly how to pronounce they
didn't want to just be called Louisiana, not ULL.
Please quit referring to us as Lafayette. We are we want to be the University of Louisiana.
But Louisiana, LSU doesn't like that. But anyway, but like if you look back at the game, App State did a great job against their rushing attack, and Louisiana is one of the most, electric rushing attacks you'll see in all of college football. I think they led the nation in yards per rush. But App State sold out on the run, and they did a pretty good job against Louisiana, Lafayette, ULL, La Laffy. But you know who's come a long way since that game is Levi Lewis. And he's been better. It's his first year starting. He got some playing time last year. But he's coming off his best game passing last week, granted against a bad La Monroe defense. Louisiana Monroe, La Monroe, ULM. So I think that his ability now to throw the ball is going to, I think he's going to hit some passes early and make the App State defense respect ULL's passing game more, which is going to open it up for all those backs. And I think App State will miss Sutton a little bit. The special teams, huge advantage for Louisiana. Look for my boy Calais on kick returns, one of the best kick returners in the nation. They also have a great punter, the better punter. They had the more reliable kicker. So that could come into play as well. But bottom line, I think that these teams are pretty close. So I'm rolling with the Raging Cajuns. Wouldn't surprise me if App State won, but I'm letting it ride here.
Yeah, and there are advantages for each offensive unit. ULL has the advantage in rushing explosiveness. They're top 30 compared to App State. They're outside the top 100. But then again, App State's got all of the advantages against a really bad ULL front seven as far as line yards, power success, stuff rate, as far as that's concerned. Both teams field extremely good offensive finishing drives metrics. Both are in the top 10 in all of FBS. So if they get it down within the 40, you would expect some points. Although we have to say, we said this on the podcast, ULL is like one of those NFL bend don't break defenses that you can just push them around the field. But once you get down past the 40, their finishing drives rank on defense comes in at 13th. So expect that to play a role in getting App State field goals instead of App State touchdowns. The number is finally coming down. I think I said this was the first piece I put out last weekend was that I don't see this number at all, why it should be 6.5 or 7. Our projection makes this App State minus 1.5, which really kind of gives them home field. So Stuck's right. We make this, if it's played on a neutral, if the Sun Belt played on a neutral, we would probably have this as a pick. So I haven't understood it all week. 6 is definitely a good number, especially if the market's going to head down to 5.5. But I can say this personally for everybody that followed along when I hit it early in the week. If I can get App State like live plus points, I'm probably going to take it because this is still the Sun Belt. This is still Sun Belt refs, and after that first experience about what happened, I won't go into a diatribe about that, but I'm not taking anything for granted this game. I probably will come back if I can get App State plus points live.
Yeah, I mean, I probably will too because of my 13-1, but I think this will be
right.
I think this will be a little higher score. If I had about the total, I would look at the over. But App State should be able to run the ball. The Louisiana defensive line is not good, so they should be able to move the ball. I think both teams will be able to move the ball more than you saw in the first matchup. But let's go Raging Cajuns. It's going to be them on one TV. That's going to be my main TV. I'm going to have I don't even know. Should I'll put Baylor, Oklahoma on one TV. I don't even know if I'll put Miami, Ohio, Central Michigan on a stream in my garden outside. And then I'll have college basketball on. Some good college basketball on at noon. But you need it's all about their Cajuns.
Yeah. For me, it'll be all about OU in the first slate.
All right,
you want to move on to Ole Miss's new head coach Lane Kiffin here and talk.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because we have two coaches here, or two games today that feature teams with coaches who are moving on. All right, so you have Lane Kiffin at FAU, who's moving on to the Grove, and you have at Ole Miss, and then you have Norvell at Memphis, who's allegedly moving on to Florida State. So the question is, was their head there the entire week? Were they fully, were they all about getting their teams prepared, or were they in conversations with in financial negotiations and blah, 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 and maybe the prep wasn't there as well? I don't know. I don't think it has that big of a deal here. I think that has more. It's just still a conference championship game where I don't think like kids are like, oh, he left, fuck this. I think that can happen in bowls, which we'll talk about a lot because you just have a month in between. Your coach left and you're playing in the Arkansas Swine Bowl. Like you can then just check out, which I can see happening, but not for a conference championship. So I don't put too much weight into that. What I like here is just the under. I'm on the under 50. I'm on the under 24.5 first half. The UAB offense stinks. We don't know how healthy Tyler Johnson is, but even if he is healthy, the offensive line is bad. Wide receivers aren't great. Spencer Brown's having a bad year. I think a lot of that has to do with the offensive line. This offense is one of the worst, probably the worst offense of any winning team this year. With a winning record, and it might be a bottom 20 offense in the country. They make up for that with the defense. Their defense is really good. Their defensive front, they're excellent against the run. Now they have had the easiest schedule in the country. I mean, their schedule is a joke, but their defensive line is legit. No matter who they've played, they can get after the quarterback. Their defense can stop the run, and FAU's vulnerable along their offensive line, especially on passing down. So I think UAB is going to slow FAU down. Get them behind the sticks, get to Roberson. And FAU's defense isn't bad this year. So I think this is a lot lower scoring than the market is implying. I'm on the under here. If I had a bet aside, I'd look at UAB over 7, but I don't trust their offense.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that to remember is if Tyler Johnson isn't healthy and that sprained knee isn't in good shape and he doesn't play here, Dylan Hopkins is the backup, and they essentially they stripped him of any plays that were through the air that was a pass. He is primarily a running quarterback, and he can gain yards on the ground, but FAU should be equipped to, their rushing success rate on defense is top 10 for the Owls. So they should be able to handle if they switch off to backup quarterback Dylan Hopkins, who was really good on the ground in the interim while Tyler Johnson was out for a couple of weeks. So that even supports the under even more.
Yeah. I mean, FAU does play fast, which is always a concern if you play an FAU over, but UAB is a snail. So it kind of cancels it out there. So you're on the under here with me, right?
Yeah, I'm on the under here with you. And I feel like, you're right. I mean, UAB's so terrible on offense. You can depend on them to not get good field position, and you can depend on them to have really good in finishing drives on defense to limit FAU from scoring. They're 17th in the nation in that, and they're dependable for a turnover too. So if you look at UAB, generally they're good for havoc and pulling something off like they did against Mason Fine last week. I think what's interesting here as I look at this is how many turnovers Florida Atlantic has gotten over the last 4 weeks. It's quite amazing actually that they've had 12 plus 12 in net turnovers over the last 4 weeks. I might have to play UAB just alone on that. But I am waiting for UAB to get to 10. If it's going to be a low scoring game, I'd rather get to double digits on the Blazers.
Yeah. I mean, this UAB offense, so even when Johnson, the first game of the year, They played Alabama State at home. Alabama State, just for reference, gave up, let's see. They recently lost 43-41 at home to Alabama A&M. Mm-hmm. Well, in UAB's opener with Johnston went 8 of 19 for 100 yards, and UAB won 24-19. I mean, this offense has just been so bad all year. They played Akron, and they were up 17-6 at the half. It just wasn't pretty. And by the way, I'm gonna cough. I mean, like, if you just look at their schedule, I mean, you could see all these teams that they played, and they haven't done much without the benefit of turnovers. And when they played anyone with a pulse, I mean, they played Southern Miss, and with Hopkins at quarterback, Southern Miss won 37-2. 37-2. They scored 2 points in that game. UAB had 173 yards of offense. So, I mean, this offense, I mean, they played, I faded them last week and lost. I had North Texas, but, they won 26-21. And if you look at the box score, Hopkins he had 6 of 12 for 99 yards. And the only reason UAB won is they had a pick 6 late. So This offense struggles to get to 20 points against defenses that have a pulse. And FAU's defense at least has a pulse.
Yeah, you can see the offensive rushing yards here for UAB. Just the 353 on the ground against UTEP, the 166 against La Tech, and the 203 against North Texas. A lot of that. They're slow. UAB is very slow. They like to be on the ground, even though they're not very good and they're not efficient on the ground.
Yep. All right, let's move on here to Memphis Cincy. This is a 3:30 Eastern game. This is the rematch of last week. Same place, same time, same teams, different quarterback for Cincy. Yet the line is 4 points less than where it closed at last week.
Right.
And it was 6. This was Memphis -8 for most of the week. I mean, I bet Memphis first half, Memphis game. I just think this line is crazy to me. I make this closer to 2 touchdowns. And last week, Benny Bryant got his first start for Cincy. And, their regular starter, Desmond Ridder, will start this week. But I actually think it might be a downgrade. He can run it a little better. But first of all, I don't know how healthy is my cat. One of my cats making an appearance. Last week, Bryant showed that he can make a lot of the throws that Ridder couldn't and can't make. So, I think this is crazy that this line is 4, 5, 6 points less than it was last week, because I'm not sure that the quarterback position is a downgrade is an upgrade for Cincy with Ridder in there instead of Bryant. And Memphis last week, they won by 10, but if you look at the box score, they were extremely efficient. They averaged 7 yards per play. I think Memphis can name it here.
Yeah, they may be able to name it, but I kind of like the under in this game, even though it's steaming up. It's finally past last week's total of 58. I'm going to let it continue to steam up before I get in on some under here. And listen, I think last week the number to get to 58 was supported by a 95-yard kickoff return touchdown. Ben Bryant was hot in the first half. He had 3 drives of 11 plays, resulting in 17 points. Once Memphis kind of figured Ben Bryant out, they shut him down in the second half completely. They started to get to Bryant. They had multiple turnovers from him. And you're right. So Luke Fickell hasn't decided on who's going to be the quarterback today. And Ridder has not really had a body injury. He's had more of something going on, his psyche. He just, he's not playing good quarterback right now. So, Ridder, both Stuckey and I agree that Ridder is actually probably a downgrade from Ben Bryant, especially the Ben Bryant that played in the second half last week. So we like Desmond Ridder to support our under. And we definitely like, his passing hasn't been too good. There's been multiple interceptions. He hasn't thrown for over 200 yards since September. So, definitely any kind of Desmond Ridder in there. We like Memphis and we like the under.
Sorry to go let my cat in. Yeah, so I'll be on Memphis here, and I'll be on Memphis. Also might add some if Cincy scores early. I would tend to agree with you on the under. All right, let's move on to Hawaii Boise. Look, I mean, this is, I think, the best line of the weekend. It's a pretty efficiently lined conference championship weekend, as you usually see. I don't think that there's any glaring, lines that are way off. Although I think if I had to say the ones that are most off, probably, like 2 or 3 points off is, a Lafayette, Miami of Ohio, but it is the MAC. But this line is pretty spot on to me, both the side and the total. It's, I think the Boise State offense is a lot better with Henderson. They have the way better defense, the way better special teams. Hawaii is a pretty good offense. They might use both quarterbacks here. But I cannot see Hawaii going in to Boise here and winning this game. Line is spot on. I mean, almost like to the exact numbers for both the side and total for me. So I want no part of this game unless Hawaii is maybe up at the half. Hawaii maybe jumps out to a big lead. Then I may jump in on Boise live because this Hawaii defense is beyond bad. So I don't know how they can't stop Boise for 60 minutes, and Boise will get a couple stops. So unless, I'll be looking for a Boise live opportunity, but if this game is, close or Boise has a close lead throughout or up big, this is complete pass for me. How about you?
I actually like Hawaii at 14 or more. I power rate at 12.8. So, I mean, there's a little bit of an edge there, but what comes down to me is that Hawaii had 3 turnovers in their own territory last time to give Boise State that big lead. Hawaii kept it within a touchdown throughout all of the first quarter. So I think that they can do the same here, especially considering they want to do what they generally do, which is do the run and shoot, burn their play clock, and rely on their success rate. They're 6th in rushing success rate. They're 10th in passing success rate. And it doesn't matter if it's Cordero or Cole McDonald. They've been highly efficient at moving the chains and burning clock. They're not explosive whatsoever on offense, but they are, like we said, efficient. Their offensive line is 11th in sack rate, so nobody's really getting to the quarterback. They're top 40 in finishing drives, so they're at least converting some points when they get into opponent territory. So I think they're going to burn clock, and I think they're going to get points on the board. And if you just take those 3 turnovers they had in their own territory last time, it would have been a much closer game. And Boise was just on fire that game. I mean, absolutely every single quarterback. All 3 quarterbacks played. All 3 quarterbacks threw for touchdowns. It was a pretty crazy game. But I do think
people don't get a quarterback on Hawaii because they're often – I mean, you just said they're not explosive.
Right.
They get rid of the ball quick, and then they get their speedy receivers out in space, out in the flats. So they do get rid of the ball quick. But you're reading some of the Hawaii offensive numbers. You want to read some of their defensive success rate?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was just saying the reason why I think Hawaii can keep it close is because their offense can actually control the clock and be successful moving the chains. Their defense is god awful. I mean, just have some pride, step up. I mean, some of these stats, 119th in line yards for the Hawaii defense, 127th in sack rate. They're not going to get any pressure. I don't even know how Bachmeier got hurt in the first game because it doesn't look like Hawaii touches any quarterbacks. Their defense is 96 in finishing drives. So it's just a clear path if you want to score some points when you're going up against Hawaii defense in opponent territory. Hawaii's 110th in special teams. I mean, just a lot of bad categories outside of their offense, which is probably going to give them trouble today. But yeah, I would grab the 14 and get a little, maybe a 14 and a half because don't turn the ball over and we don't have a 22-point game last time.
It's a friend of mine, whenever we say we want to it's a clear pass, we call it a leech. Like Leach, all he wants to do is pass. So this is a leech for me, at least pregame. All right, let's move on to the SEC championship game, which is a playoff game. It's a quarterfinal game, at least for Georgia. I think that LSU's in regardless. Maybe if LSU loses like 100-0, they're out. But I think LSU is safe. Georgia winning in. Everyone agrees with that. This line's at 7. The over-under is actually taking money, which I was wrong on. I said I wanted to get the 55 on the under. I have some first half under. I think Georgia's defense can compete. I think that their offense is going to go heavy run, a lot of 2 tight end sets. You're going to see. I mean, they're both their top 2 receivers are out. One for the whole game, the other for the first half. So I think that you're going to see them play super slow, keep the LSU offense off the field. I think the game script that we'll see from the Georgia offense supports an underplay. And I'm a believer in their defense across the board. They are just so solid. I think they'll provide the biggest test to date yet for an LSU offense, which might be the most efficient. It's them and Oklahoma toss up as far as the most efficient offense in the country. But Georgia might be the most efficient defense. So maybe LSU goes super, super fast, which wouldn't help the under. But I'm a believer in the Georgia defense. I'm not in the Georgia offense. And I think that how they're going to play this is they're going to have to play just super conservative, run the clock, keep the LSU offense off the field. So that's why I'm on the under here. I'm also Georgia to win the SEC, Georgia national title futures. Took a little piece of Georgia +7. We'll be adding to Georgia in the second half if they're down. I trust Kirby Smart and his second half adjustments more than the staff of LSU. Plus, they'll get one of their receivers back, one of their top 2 receivers back for the second half, who's out with a suspension in the first half. So those are my positions and thoughts on the game. Also, Georgia probably best special teams in the country. LSU also very good special teams, very good, but worth mentioning. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I love both the defenses in this game. I like how LSU has kind of turned it on the last couple of weeks after being called out. Dave Aranda been called out, and he was getting all pats on the back from Coach O after the Texas A&M games. So we'll see if they can keep that up. But as much as we read into this LSU program, it was all about poor tackling and poor angles, and it had nothing to do with X's and O's from Dave Aranda. So it looks like the LSU defense is back on track. And in the meantime, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has just been tearing opponents apart. So that's another dimension for LSU offense that they may need today, because Georgia is the number 1 defense in the nation when it comes to finishing drives. Georgia is top 20 in passing success rate, rushing success rate. They're 6th in the nation. They limit explosiveness. This defense is a national championship caliber defense on Georgia. And LSU, this will be the toughest challenge that they have the entire season. And I hate to say it might be the toughest challenge that they have over anything that LSU is going to see in the playoff as far as defensive-wise goes. So I like the first half under in this game because of Joe Brady and the passing game coordinator for LSU taking on Kirby Smart. And I just think that there's going to be a few drives where Joe Burrow is going to have to be able to look at disguised pressure. Georgia's not – they don't have a lot of havoc. They don't take the ball away from you, and they don't have a lot of scores off defense, but they're very good at getting you off the field. They're very good at limiting you to just 3 plays and getting you off. They don't give up drives whatsoever. But, at the same time, I feel like we need a Georgia defensive score. We need some havoc to happen for Georgia to get this home all the way, not just to cover the spread, but to get the win and keep our futures alive. So the way that I'm playing it today, I'm going to take LSU to win the first half. I'm going to take LSU on the under in the first half, and I'm going to reassess what I'm going to do with Georgia futures. I may let them ride by the time halftime comes, because Kirby Smart's the best coach at halftime adjustments, and he's proven that with his success rate in the third quarter over the last 3 years. So, I'll reassess Georgia futures at halftime, but I think it's an under game in the first half.
All right, before we get to the final 2 games and get out of here, they might be the worst games of the day, but I hear people on Twitter saying like, we don't need 18 playoff. This is like playoffs today. Oh, what are we supposed to do at night? These aren't playoff games. I mean, technically maybe Clemson is, but they're a 28-point favorite. And Ohio State's in regardless, and they're a 16-point favorite. The game would be a lot more intriguing if we had an 18 playoff and Wisconsin could win to get in. Same with Virginia. And then same with the biggest group of 5 team got in. Imagine how much bigger that Cincy Memphis game would be. So don't give me this bullshit. We don't need an 18 playoff. And then we also don't need a month break before the playoff once the season ends. All right. So anyway, before we get to those final 2 games that we'll go through quickly, what do you think happens today? Because I think Oklahoma wins, but I'm going to go out on a limb and I say Georgia wins, and the final playoff is Ohio State. And this will be a big talking point. Does Georgia deserve to get ranked higher than LSU if Georgia beats LSU?
Yes.
So that means it would be Ohio State, LSU, right. Burrow versus LSU, round 1, and then Clemson, Georgia, round 1. That's my prediction for today.
That would be the worst case scenario for the futures, because I don't want Clemson and Georgia to play in the semifinal. It would be inevitable. And so if Georgia wins this game, what we're saying is I do think OU is going to win too. So let's just assume OU wins. Then the SEC championship game, the whole entire conference and their coaches get to say, if Georgia could take this to the house, we can get 2 teams into the playoff. Now, I doubt, I just play conspiracy theorists. I always play conspiracy theorists with these referees and these conferences when they patrol their own games. Looking at this, if Georgia wins the SEC today, they'll be ranked 3rd. LSU will fall down to 4th. I don't think a one-loss OU gets in, considering LSU's lone loss, considering their resume to this point, and LSU's lone loss will come in the SEC championship game against Georgia. I mean, Oklahoma lost to Kansas State. So that should pretty much settle that. That would seal Oklahoma's fate going to the Sugar Bowl and the playoff, getting 2 teams. But I think Georgia has a great shot. We have a moneyline parlay piece. You guys go check it out. Stuck and I put in who we like today, and mine was Georgia. And I think they absolutely can keep this game close. And if they're leading at halftime, they're going to win this game. And then these night games become irrelevant. Completely.
You're way too confident about them just winning. They're going to win this game.
Georgia?
The LSU offense. Yeah, this is still the LSU offense. Still the best offense in college football.
I don't know. I've something inside of me says that Georgia just methodically beats teams like the SEC has the last 20 years, right? Enough to say 1 possession ahead. And I go back to this. I saw a lot of chatter on Twitter yesterday. Like, Georgia lost South Carolina. They're terrible. South Carolina had a post-game win expectancy of 8%. Jake Fromm had a pick 6 at the first time in his career in college. So, I mean, it took some just crazy events, some crazy odds for South Carolina to win that game. But that's what Georgia does. They stay 1 possession ahead of you. They keep it slow. They keep everything in front of them. They don't have a lot of havoc, but they don't let your offense on the field. I think they're going to be a real problem for LSU's offense through the first quarter, at least, maybe the second quarter. We'll see if Joe Brady can adjust. Anyways, night games. I got nothing on the night games. I mean, we
already talked about Virginia Clemson.
Wisconsin's now passing on standard downs. I like the over in that game a lot. I mean, Wisconsin's Jack Cohn's throwing on 1st and 10. That did that against Minnesota all day.
Yeah, I mean, my problem here is if Fields isn't fully healthy, does he go the whole game as number 1? If he doesn't, that would obviously help Wisconsin with a backdoor. You assume that he would only come out if Ohio State's up a couple or 3 touchdowns late. But if he's also not mobile, he holds on to the ball a lot, and Wisconsin can get pressure, top 5 in the nation in that category with their linebackers that blitz a lot and that are very good. But their second, I mean, this line, it's an interesting line because this line was 14.5 in Columbus the first time around. Granted, there was weather, which you would think benefits Wisconsin. But this is going to be an indoor stadium. The speed differential will show for Ohio State. And you would think maybe Ohio State has some numbers where you give up a lot of explosive runs, but they bottled up Taylor. 20 carries, 52 yards the first matchup. They just said, you're not going to beat us with the run, and Cohn couldn't beat them through the air, and their corners can match up on the outside. So this line, to me, is a little inflated.
Yep.
I make it a tad under 2 touchdowns. So if it gets to 17, please don't get to 17. I'd have to look at Wisconsin, but it's hard to see how they will keep up in this game. And it feels like if it gets to 17, I'll be rooting for a backdoor.
Yeah, me too. For Wisconsin, I think that they can keep up better than they did the game before. It's going to be a fast track.
They can keep up? You think that their offense can do?
Wisconsin's not going to sit around and run the ball 55 times. They're going to, and they threw it only 17 times last time out.
Yeah, but can they actually throw?
Can they have success?
Yeah,
I mean, Rutgers and Michigan did throwing, and I know that we've been pointed out about the nickelback coming back for Ohio State. But I mean, that's just one player. I mean, I don't think that completely changes everything. I mean, Utah was giving up big explosive passing plays with Julian Blackman in and out. So, I mean, it's just one player. So, I mean, I think the over is good, and I think Wisconsin will get their share of the points up on the board.
All right, fair enough. It's time to get out of here. Raging Cajuns, baby.
That's Boomer Sooner for me.
And Raging Cajuns and Georgia. Good luck, everyone, today. We'll have bowl lines out tomorrow. We'll have our podcast. We'll be out on Monday morning. We'll recap this whole weekend. Enjoy it. It's just Army Navy next Saturday. That's it. But then we'll have all the bowls and the playoffs, but we'll recap all this We'll recap the NFL, preview Monday Night Football tomorrow. That podcast episode will be out on Monday. But thanks for joining us, Colin. Let's go Rage Occasions. Catch y'all later. Cheers, guys.
Peace out.